Hello friend, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Becky if you're new, and today we are going to prep a week's worth of meals. Well, a week's worth of dinners for my family this afternoon. It is on and off torrential downpour out there. I really need to get out there and clean the garden up, but today is not the day. And so what I thought I would do, since it's raining, is take a couple hours. Hopefully I can get this done in less than 2 hours. We're gonna prep 4 dinners, and I did not do any grocery shopping for this. I planned my menu based on what I already had on hand and what is coming in from the garden. I still have quite a bit of harvesting I need to do. So I want to make a crock pot dinner, a oven baked dinner, and I had a thing on my computer. I cannot find my computer to print it off. I know it's somewhere. I had it this morning, but let me see if I can take you through these groceries that I shop my pantry, and I can tell you what we are going to be making today. Now, I'm not going to make any breakfast items because last week we prepped some 100% fresh milled waffles and some breakfast burritos. So I just pulled these out of the freezer, and this will be our breakfast for the week. So I don't even have to think about breakfast. We are going to make pizza, and we're going to make pizza dough with fresh milled grain. So that's going to be a fun experiment. And I will make all the components for the pizza so that all I have to do is assemble it on the night we have pizza. We're going to do a slow cooker white chicken corn chowder. And so I got corn out of the freezer. This is a tomato from the garden, onions, broth. This is going to be our pizza sauce. This is going to be for the chowder. Maybe I might not add beans to it. I didn't have white beans, so I grabbed a can of black beans. We're going to have sweet and sour beef meatballs. I need chicken for the white chicken corn chowder, sausage for pizza night, and I pulled out, this is all the meat I pulled out yesterday from the freezer to thaw in the refrigerator overnight. And I pulled out some chicken thighs for tonight's dinner. I want to make fresh made pita bread with some fresh milled flour. I also want to make a marinated chicken, the chicken thighs in a yogurt sauce, and it is torrential downpour. Oh my goodness, the perfect day to do this. And so I need to marinate the chicken thighs. That's the first thing we're gonna do. I'm just gonna show this to you. This is why we are not outside right now, because it is absolutely torrential downpour. So it's the perfect time to get some cooking done. I actually have this window open because we're gonna start doing a bunch of cooking. It's gonna get warm in here. So I want to have a little bit of fresh air coming in. I have some bread that we made last week that we're gonna turn into breadcrumbs for some of our recipes. And this morning, go out into the garden and I harvested some carrots. Look at this carrot. There's some spots I'm gonna have to peel off because we're gonna make a carrot salad, and we're gonna need some carrots for a roasted carrot dish that we're gonna make when we have the meatballs. So that is the groceries that I shop for my pantry. So it is supposed to be nice for the next 3 days after today. So that's why we will spend all that time outside, and I won't have to think about dinner because we'll have done all of the work today. And I'm gonna pop these breakfast burritos and waffles in the oven, in the refrigerator. They do reheat better if they are thawed. So usually when I do a bunch of breakfast meal prep like this, I'll go to my freezer, I'll pull a couple things out, pop them in my fridge, and then I have a week's worth of breakfast. And when we have waffles, I can always fry up a couple eggs. I have pre-cooked bacon in my freezer, so I can just warm that up if we want an extra protein to go along with our waffles. But I did just do some research on fresh milled flour, and the soft white wheat flour that I have actually has 6 grams of protein for every quarter cup, which I think is pretty cool. I didn't really realize that there is more protein in fresh milled flour. Plus, obviously, there's more nutrients, like micronutrients, and there's more fiber. And my family, I have to tell you, is absolutely loving the waffles and the pancakes we made. And I think that they're actually more filling because of that extra protein and fiber. So let's go ahead and make a marinade for our chicken, so that can be marinating while we prep all the rest of the dinners, and then we can make dinner tonight with some marinated chicken. My plan for this chicken was to cook it on the grill. And so if I can get a moment where the grill is not getting rained on, then I will go ahead and do that. Otherwise, I might use the air fryer or the oven. We'll just have to see what it's like when it comes that time for dinner. So I just grabbed a bunch of spices, and we're gonna make a simple yogurt marinade. So first I'm gonna start with about a cup of yogurt. This recipe I am making up. If it turns out delicious, I will write it up and link it for you. So we have a cup of yogurt, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of black pepper, a teaspoon of basil salt. I'm gonna do a half teaspoon of ginger, a teaspoon of smoked paprika, a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, and a half teaspoon of turmeric, along with some sumac. This is one of my new favorite spices, and I'm gonna put, I think I'm gonna put a whole teaspoon of that because it adds a nice citrusy level without me having to get a lemon out and juice it. I'm gonna do 2 tablespoons of honey and a 1/4 cup of cilantro. This is freeze-dried cilantro. I don't have fresh. Again, we're doing a pantry pull week of dinners. I'm gonna mix our yogurt marinade up with 2 tablespoons of oil. This just happens to be avocado. You could use whatever kind of oil you want to use. And I'm gonna taste this because I haven't added my chicken yet. And let's see what this tastes like. That is so good. Okay, the sumac, if you've never cooked with sumac before, I highly recommend it. I just started using it with the honey, the sumac, and the cilantro. Freeze-dried cilantro tastes just like fresh. That is yummy. Okay, really excited about this. So now what I'm gonna do is just push my spices over. We're gonna use these a few more times, so I'm not actually gonna put them away yet because we're gonna be using them today. That's one nice thing about prepping a couple dinners at the same time is you can use the same things multiple times to get multiple uses out of them. Okay, so here I have boneless skin-on chicken thighs. These are chicken thighs that I helped butcher over the summer. A family friend raised these chickens, and the chicken thighs are still a little bit frozen, which is fine because they are gonna have a few hours to thaw and marinate in the refrigerator. And look at the color of that fat on this chicken. This is a beautiful, beautiful quality chicken thigh right here. So now I'm gonna mix this up. I'm gonna cover this, pop this in the fridge, and our main for tonight is well on its way. We're gonna have a carrot salad to go along with tonight's dinner, a tomato and onion salad to top our pita bread and our chicken with as well. So I'm gonna cover this, and I love a good sauce. So while I have all these spices out, I'm gonna go ahead and make a sauce to go on top of our pita. We're basically gonna make a pita sandwich with a bunch of garden fresh goodies and this chicken. So I'm gonna use a lot of the same ingredients. I'm gonna start with 2 big spoonfuls of yogurt. I actually think I'm gonna make this more of a tzatziki style because I have homegrown freeze-dried zucchinis, which will reconstitute in this yogurt beautifully. So I'm gonna make this really, really simple and add some garlic powder, onion powder, and my basil salt, along with the juice of a lemon. And I do need to add some pepper to this. So the lemon juice will help reconstitute that zucchini, and it'll still keep it a nice thick sauce. This is a Greek yogurt that I use for both the marinade and this yogurt sauce. I think I'm gonna add some fresh cilantro to this too, or I should say freeze-dried cilantro, just because we love it. And a little bit of pepper. Every time I make tzatziki sauce, I do have a recipe, but I do just kind of make it up with what I have on hand. And this will reconstitute in the fridge and be absolutely delicious on tonight's dinner. Let me taste it to make sure the salt level is good and the pepper level is good. Now today is how I just cook in my kitchen when I'm just in here kind of experimenting, having fun. Oh yeah, that cucumber tastes so fresh, even though that cucumber's been sitting on my pantry for a while. But freeze-dried goods they taste fresh. Okay, so 2 components of this week's dinners are done. For the pizza night, I need some Italian sausage browned up. So I'm gonna get that going while we do other things, because that can obviously sit on the stove and cook while I'm doing other things, I'm actually gonna go ahead and get some flour milling too before I start that. We need flour for the pizza dough and for the pita bread. Ooh, that bowl fits perfect. And with my new mill, you're supposed to turn it on before you start grinding. Now, I only have soft white wheat berries. I had to go downstairs to grab a few more because I didn't think I had quite enough up here. But in an ideal world, I would be using a hard wheat berry instead of a soft wheat berry. I have soft white wheat berries here. So the difference between a soft wheat berry and a hard wheat berry is the amount of protein or gluten found in the grain. Soft wheat berries tend to have less gluten and are thus usually better for things like pancakes and waffles and muffins and things. And then the hard berries have more protein, so they're usually better for breads. Well, I only have this on hand. I just ordered some hard wheat berries, but they don't come for a couple days, so we're just gonna use what we have on hand. This is the third time where I've taken a day at the beginning of the week to prep my entire week's worth of dinners, and it is quickly becoming my new favorite way to do meal prep, because I, one, don't have to think about food. It's already been taken care of. Two, I don't have to dirty up my kitchen every day to make dinner. And three, we were able to have home cooked meals with hardly any effort on my part after we spent this day in the kitchen. So it's fantastic. So I will show you how all of these dinners come together throughout the week as I make them, so you can see from start to finish. So there we go. There's our flour for our recipes today. I just realized I forgot to harvest enough peppers for the pizza. I grabbed a couple peppers when it wasn't raining, which it's not raining right now, so I gotta come out here and get these peppers now for the chili or the corn chowder, white chicken corn chowder, creamy white chicken corn chowder, and I need some for the pizza too. And then this garden is going to be wrangled back in, hopefully, in the next few days, as it's supposed to be sunny outside. And look at this tomato plant though. It's still going strong. I need bell peppers for the pizza. Josh's favorite pizza toppings are Italian sausage, green or red peppers, and green or red or white onions. I did a lot of reading over the weekend on baking bread with fresh milled flour, and what a lot of the recipes say to do, I just turned some lights on, I'm gonna put these peppers over here, is to do a first soak of the grain and the water and all that before you start kneading. And usually the recipes with fresh milled flour tend to use a little bit more yeast because the bread's denser and it takes a little bit more to lift it up. And this pizza dough recipe is specifically written for freshly milled flour. So that's what we're doing today. And this is gonna be 100% fresh milled flour, so we'll see how it turns out. I just added water, and I will link this recipe down below for you if you are interested. One thing that made me decide to use this recipe in particular is it says it actually tastes better if it sits overnight. So we're gonna have this pizza tomorrow. It says you can actually put it into the fridge for up to 3 days. So tomorrow night we're gonna have pizza, and this is gonna ferment in the fridge overnight. And so after we're spent a ton of time in the garden, we'll come inside and have pizza, and the dough and all the toppings will already be prepped and ready for me. I'm gonna mix that together. Now we're gonna add our fresh milled flour and our salt. Now we're gonna mix this together and incorporate. And now that all the flour and ingredients are mixed together, I'm gonna put the lid on it and we're gonna let it sit for 15 to 20 minutes before we actually start kneading it. This is going to hydrate the flour. So I'm gonna go ahead and just set this mixer over here. And our sausage is done. So let's prep the veggies for our pizza, and then basically most of the components for our pizza are done, other than I do need to shred some cheese. And then we'll get going on our slow cooker recipe, because that's literally a dump and go recipe. So let me grab out my big cutting board. Let me wash my peppers I just harvested. So we're gonna use a Walla Walla onion for our veggies and these 2 beautiful green bell peppers that we just picked together. They smell so good. There's nothing like a fresh pepper. Because these peppers are a little bit wet still, what I'm gonna do to keep them nice and fresh, I'm just gonna put a paper towel at the bottom of this container just to absorb any extra moisture. I am gonna use them tomorrow, but I just want them to be nice and fresh for me and not get soft. These Walla Walla onions do not last long. They're delicious, but you do have to use them up relatively quickly after harvest. So I'm going to work on using these mostly today. I'm going to keep these in longer strips for no particular reason, just because that's how I decided to cut them. So we'll just put these on top, and we'll use all this onion and pepper on our pizza. My sausage has cooled, and I'm going to put the sausage in this container. I'm going to go ahead and put a little paper towel at the bottom too, just to get any excess grease. I tried to keep the chunks a little bit on the bigger side, but then there's some smaller pieces. Now we're going to grate some cheese into here. I have 1 pound of mozzarella, and I'm going to go ahead and just grate all of this. I might not need it all. Usually when I say that, I do end up using it all, whatever cheese I grate. But I'm going to just grate all of this, and then we will have our mozzarella cheese for tomorrow done as well. And then while I have the grater out, I'm going to go ahead and shred up 3 of these 8-ounce blocks of sharp cheddar, because we need cheddar for our corn chowder. So I'll just use this grater once. I think these are the only 2 cheese products I need, and then I can pop this in the dishwasher and we can call it good. I kind of forgot that I needed to do that cheddar cheese. If I had remembered, I probably would have grabbed out the food processor, but I can do this by hand, no problem. We'll get it done, and I won't have to do it over the next couple days. And then on the stove, I do have the pan that I fried the sausage in, and I just have that with some water on it, and I'm deglazing that stainless steel frying pan so that it will clean up really easy. You don't want those brown bits to harden on the pan, because then it's going to make it a lot more time scrubbing it to get it clean. I decided to only shred 2 blocks, so this is 1 pounded cheddar. That's more than I need for the soup, but it's just nice having shredded cheese in the fridge. So I'm gonna get the lid on this. I didn't think I could get 3 blocks in there, and I think I'm right. 2 is gonna fit perfect. So lid on this. I'm gonna go rinse my cutting board, because we're gonna need this a couple more times just to get the cheese off. And I'm gonna pop these in the fridge along with our Italian sausage and our peppers and onions. So now I wanna get going on the white corn chowder, the creamy white corn chowder. This is literally dump and go. Everything is in here. I do need to cut my onions. And I did go downstairs when I collected the onions that I was going to use today, and I looked for the ones that needed to be used first. Again, these are Walla Wallas, and they just do not have a very long pantry shelf life. So these are the ones that I'm going to be using pretty regularly for the foreseeable future. And then probably in a month, 6 weeks, I'll probably end up having to dice most of them and actually freezing them, which is awesome, because having pre-diced frozen onions in the freezer is so convenient. If I wasn't trying to use up all these onions, that's probably what I would have put in here, and it would have saved me one whole step. But because I need to use these onions, I'm just gonna take a second here and dice them. I'm gonna dice them pretty small. These are 2, probably after I peeled them, the equivalent of like 1 really large onion. We love onions around here. I did turn the stove off. My pot has simmered long enough. The brown bits that kind of caramelized onto my pan are now soft. I can easily scrape those off and scrub that pan. If you've never used a bench scraper, it's very nice. So we're gonna get our onions in here. I probably should have put the chicken in the bottom. Maybe I'll lay that on top of these onions. I guess it doesn't really matter because it's gonna all cook together. For this recipe, I only wanted 2 chicken breasts, and the ones that did not have skin on them in my freezer, they were packages of 4. So I'm gonna cook this soup with this skin on this chicken breast. But before I shred the chicken, I will take that skin off, but it will add just some nice flavor to the soup. So I'm gonna go wash my hands, and I have 2 poblano peppers here. I'm gonna get these diced up. If you don't have poblano peppers or you can't find them in your local grocery store, you could also use just a can of diced chilies. That would also save you a step of having to prep peppers, but I happen to have these poblano peppers in my garden right now that need to be used up. Now we need to make this corn chowder. So I have 2 packages of 2 cups each of corn. So that's 4 cups total going in here. I'm gonna go ahead and add the spices now. So I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, a teaspoon of basil salt, a teaspoon of black pepper, 2 teaspoons of cumin, and 1 teaspoon of coriander, a little more for good measure. The equivalent of 1 bunch of cilantro, and 4 cups of chicken broth. Now we're gonna put the lid on, and this dinner is basically done. We are gonna make this a creamy white version of this soup, so it's not completely done, but we're not gonna add any more ingredients until after it cooks. So I just put the lid on it, pop this in the fridge, and 1 more meal is 90% done. So that's great. I won't have to grab out a cutting board or wash any produce or anything like that. This is basically done. So in the fridge this goes. So now I think our bread has sat, or our dough I should say, has sat long enough. We can actually get it to start to knead. And the recipe says that this needs to knead for 15 to 20 minutes. So I am making this bread in my Bosch mixer. This is my favorite mixer to make bread in. I have a smaller-ish KitchenAid, and it does not handle bread that well. If maybe I had the bigger one that has like the crank down bowl or the really large one, it would handle it better. So I can link this and my mill down below. I have been using this now for over a year, love it. This I'm still learning. This is only the 2nd week I've had it. I've already used it like 6 or 7 times and I love it. And you will see throughout the future how much I end up using this, but I'm really excited about this. But I'm gonna get this going. I'm gonna put the lid on it and I'm gonna clean up a little bit and start on another recipe. When I was planning my menu, I had mentioned that I was looking at my pantry to see what I had on hand, so I didn't have to run to the grocery store for this dinner. Another thing I was thinking when I was planning this menu was thinking of recipes that use the same ingredient but in different ways so that I could streamline my prep. So here you can see this is a ton of carrots from the garden. My carrots this year did fantastic, and I need carrots for 2 dinners. We are going to have carrots in 2 different ways, so I was able to take the time to wash a bunch of carrots, peel all these carrots, but I'm going to make them 2 different ways throughout the week so that it doesn't feel like we're having the same thing. So the first way we're going to have it is I'm going to do a shaved carrot salad, and I will write a recipe up for this. This is both of these carrots recipes that we have this week are our favorite ways to eat carrots. We went through this carrot salad in 2 days. It was so delicious. I honestly wish I had made twice as much because I was eating it for breakfast with a breakfast burrito and it was so good. But you could, shave your carrots however you like and put whatever kind of dressing you want on them. But I will write up the dressing recipe that I made for this carrot salad. And then the second way we're going to have carrots is we're going to have roasted carrots. I like really thinly sliced carrots on the biased and roasted in a really hot oven, get a good char on them. They were so good. We end up eating all these carrots in one sitting because they were so good. Again, I wish I had made double the amount of carrots because we gobbled them up the night that we roasted them, and I wish I had had leftovers. But the way I'm streamlining this meal prep is I'm using the same ingredient but processing it a little bit different so it doesn't feel like we're having the same thing over and over. I got all the carrots chopped, sliced, and ready to go, and now our dough has been kneading for a very long time. I think it's done. It's definitely a soft dough. Let's see. It said it's supposed to do the window pane test. Oh yeah. You know, maybe I'm gonna let it go for another 5 minutes. It's not gonna hurt it. It's definitely a nice soft dough. It's not dry at all, which is good. And it's not going to get as gluten-y as it would because this is a soft white wheat. I probably should have added a cup of bread flour, but I didn't. So I'm just gonna add, that was probably 2 tablespoons of flour. I am gonna make a simple vinaigrette to put on these carrots. The first thing I'm gonna add is white wine vinegar, garlic, onion powder, pepper, basil, salt, a high quality olive oil because you want to have something that tastes delicious, a little bit of honey, not too much because the carrots are sweet, but there is definitely a nice sweetness that the honey adds along with the flavor of honey. A couple tablespoons of yogurt, sumac. I mix that together with a bunch of fresh cilantro, and then I give it a taste test and I adjust the seasonings as needed. And then I wanted to mention that the pizza dough recipe did say to use a hard wheat berry, which I did not have, so I did not use it. And I definitely think that the dough would have done better if I had used a hard wheat berry. I now have hard red wheat and hard red white wheat berries. So I am going to go ahead and try that same recipe and actually following the directions and see if it turns out even better. So here I'm going to oil my carrots. I'm going to put together a simple rub with garlic salt, onion powder, garlic powder, and some Korean red pepper flakes. Mix that together. So here's our vegetable for tonight, and so I will dress this later. I did throw in some pistachios that are salted and roasted. If I had cranberries, dried cranberries, I'd put that in here too, but I am all out. And then this is for when we have the sweet and sour meatballs. We're gonna have this roasted with our spices on the side. So I'm gonna pop both of these in the outside fridge, and our dough is done at this point. So let me get this outside and we'll come back and address the dough. This has now been kneading for quite some time. So I'm gonna just take this Ziploc bag, and all I'm gonna do is spray it and take our dough ball, put it in the Ziploc bag, pop this in the fridge, and now our pizza night dinner is 100% ready for us. All we need to do is roll out this pizza dough, make the pizza, and we've got some homemade pizza. And what I think I want to get going on next, I'm going to pop this in the fridge, is actually the pita bread dough because that needs to rise. So while the pita bread is rising, we will make the meatballs. So I could not find exactly what I was looking for online when it comes to a pita bread recipe that uses fresh milled flour. So I'm going to make this up. So we'll see how it goes. And I'm going to double it because if I'm going to make it, I might as well make enough to freeze, because we love pita. And you can take the extra pitas too, put a little bit of spray on them, throw them in the air fryer, and they make pita chips, and they're so good. So in here, I just put 2 cups of water. Now I'm gonna add 4 teaspoons of yeast. And I'm gonna do half all-purpose flour, half fresh milled flour. And that's the part I'm making up. Most recipes are all whole wheat, are all white, and I kind of want to do a mixture. So I'm going to put 3 tablespoons of honey, and I'm going to let the yeast and the honey kind of sit here and marry for a minute, get nice and fluffy. I realize I probably should have started with the pita bread because it needs 2 rises versus the pizza dough is going straight into the refrigerator and doing its kind of fermenting in the fridge, but I didn't really think through that very well. That's okay. It'll give me time to get this kitchen clean. My dishwasher is clean and it needs to be unloaded. There are dishes piling up in the sink, and so between rises, we will get our meatballs done and our sweet and sour sauce made. And I am just blending up some bread here that I have, just some different sandwich loaves and a rustic loaf that need to be used up that I'm gonna turn into breadcrumbs. This is more breadcrumbs than we need for the sweet and sour meatballs, but I will toast whatever we don't use and throw on the pantry shelf. I have the wrong lid. I'm just gonna preheat my oven to 300 degrees. This is not my favorite thing to do. I don't know why. It just feels like a chore to me to make breadcrumbs. So a lot of times what I'll do is I will wait till I have a lot of random pieces of bread. And when I have random pieces, instead of going through the effort of making them into breadcrumbs every time, they need to be turned into breadcrumbs, I'll throw a bunch of them in my freezer. And then when I have like a whole bag's worth, I'll make a bunch of breadcrumbs, but I'm out of breadcrumbs and I happen to have some bread that needs to be used up. So I'm doing it right now. And this is gonna give me a lot of breadcrumbs. Now that my dough's all mixed together, I'm gonna do that same thing. I'm gonna let this rest for about 10 minutes and then I will start the kneading process. So while this is going, I need to clean up my mess before we start the meatballs. Thought I would show you a little bit of reality of what I have going on over here, all the spices and all the things. I did take my extra flour that I ground. I ground a little bit more because I was thinking those were gonna be 100% fresh milled, but I wanted to cut it in half and kind of start with that before committing to 100% fresh milled. So I can get most of these spices at least organized. We're gonna use a bunch of them for the, where's my yogurt lid? Meatballs, so I don't wanna put them all away, but I can get some of them away. I actually have to look up that recipe because I haven't made that in a long time. It's one of our favorites. So for this week's menu, I did ask Josh kind of what he was thinking. I had things in mind because I wanted to try to get a slow cooker recipe or an Instant Pot recipe so I could just do like a dump and go. I wanted something that was gonna go in the oven. I wanted something that was maybe a little bit more labor intensive for the first night because I was already gonna be in the kitchen. And then I wanted to try making 100% whole fresh milled pizza. So that was kind of Josh's like first thing he wanted. He wanted pizza. And so when I found that recipe that said it, one was really good if it sat in the fridge overnight, I figured, okay, so we'll make the chicken and all the salads and yummy things and the pita bread tonight. I'll make the dough and the pizza for the next night. We'll have a slow cooker dinner. So the day that we go out into the garden and do that, we can do that. And then we'll have meatballs and I can just throw the meatballs in the oven and I'll have them all made up. And so that there's a little bit of variety. So you can kind of do the same concept. This is the second time I'm doing this where I'm picking dishes based on what my week has in store. I don't really have any freezer meals in my freezer dinner-wise. Stay tuned. I will be doing a big freezer cooking day here shortly. I have a lot of marinated meats, but I don't have a lot of just like put it in the oven and call it done. So that's what I need to get going on. But for now, I'm gonna get going on this counter because it is a disaster. The kitchen is tidy now, which I do enjoy working in a tidy kitchen, so that feels good. So we can kind of do the final push we need to finish all of this meal prep. Now, one thing I do different than what I normally do with this sweet and sour meatball recipe is I don't pre-bake the meatballs, and that was a mistake. I just pour the sauce on the raw meatballs after the sauce had cooled, and then I put this in the refrigerator and I bake it the day we go to eat it. And it still tasted good, but the problem is if you don't pre-bake your meatballs, then you have to skim the fat off the sauce because you're not able to kind of skim the fat off once they're baked before you add the sauce. So we still ate it. It just was a little bit more work after I baked them. So definitely pre-bake your meatballs, drain the fat off, pour the sauce on, and then bake them one more time to get them ooey and gooey and delicious. So this has been kneading for quite some time and it looks absolutely beautiful. Let's see. I think I'm gonna add a little bit more flour to it. It's pretty sticky. Okay, so that feels beautiful now. So I'm gonna let this rise for an hour. I can get this off. I'm getting almost done with all the dishes. I've been working on those. Oh goodness. Okay, yeah, this feels great. So I'm gonna let this rise just in this mixer, but I'm gonna give it a little bit more room to rise. And I did add 1 more teaspoon of yeast because I want this to rise a little quicker than an hour. So there it goes. So what I'm gonna get going on now is actually making the sweet and sour sauce for my meatballs. Normally what I do is actually cook the meatballs in the oven, make the sauce, pour the sauce on them, and then just reheat it. But I'm not gonna do that this time. I'm doing it a little different. I'm gonna put those meatballs in the fridge. I'm gonna make the sauce, and then once the sauce is cooled, I will pour the sauce over top of the meatballs in the fridge. I gotta pull up my recipe. And this does have a lot of vinegar in it, and it does have a lot of sugar in it because it is a sweet and sour sauce. I think what I'm gonna do this time is leave out the sriracha just because I don't want it to be too spicy for my family. So I just put in white vinegar. That's all-purpose flour. I'm also not gonna put any salt in the sauce because I'm gonna put a 1/4 cup of soy sauce in there. And that was supposed to be my measuring for my sugar. I'm gonna put ketchup. I did not make any of my own ketchup this year because I just like this stuff so much. I just am using this. I want to get out the rest of that ketchup. So I'm going to pour some of this vinegar in this bottle. Woo! That's going to be a mess to clean up. Do sort of the stink. I did get the kitchen almost completely clean. I just want to get all that ketchup out of there. I might as well. We like a lot of sauce. So on the day that I cook this, I will put the carrots in the oven. I will also cook up some rice. Josh likes to have rice with this, and that's how I will serve it, with rice and the sauce and the carrots. And so that's why it's good to have extra sauce. Okay, that's brown sugar. Normally I would whisk this with a whisk because I've got that flour in there, but I can't find my whisk. So I think it's in the dishwasher. So I'm just gonna use a fork. We're gonna cook this until that flour flavor is cooked out of the sauce and it thickens a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and get the dishwasher started. I've got it completely loaded. There are just a few more dishes in the sink that I couldn't fit. And what I'm gonna do is just, once the dishwasher is done running, I will empty it, or Josh will empty it, and we will get those dishes in the dishwasher. I do not feel like washing those dishes by hand. They are the food processor dishes, and yeah, I don't want to wash those by hand. So all of the prep now is done. I'm just waiting for my sauce to finish thickening up. I did find a whisk, so I whisked it. The meatballs are in the fridge, and once that sauce thickens, cools, I will pour that sauce over top of the meatballs, and then we'll just bake them on the day that we're gonna have those. And between the breakfast that I prepped and I pulled out of the freezer and what I just prepped, I will do no more, well, we still have to cook the bread, I guess, our naan. I'm just waiting for that to rise. But the rest of the week, there's gonna be very little cooking. It'll just basically be assembling, turning on the slow cooker, adding our creaminess to our soup, and so forth. So really, really easy. I think what I'm gonna do now is check on the bread. I might actually take a little bit of a break since I got the kitchen clean. I am not someone who has to have the kitchen clean before I go to bed. I do like it if I have the kitchen clean before I go to bed, but I don't have to. Okay, so this is nice and thick. I'm gonna let this cool. Our naan, I think, is basically ready to go. Oh yeah, it's doubled in size. I was gonna take a little bit of a break, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and get this cooked up, at least shaped. I'm gonna do this. Oh, we got breadcrumbs in the oven. Oh, those are perfect. Okay, so what I'm gonna do with the breadcrumbs, because some of them are getting a little toasty, is I'm gonna go ahead and mix them up a little bit, and then I'm gonna turn the oven off, and I'll let them just finish drying in this warm oven. and then I'll just package them up and we'll use them for other cooking fun ventures later. So I just learned this trick that to make things rise quicker, you can just add a little extra yeast. So adding that 1 little extra teaspoon of yeast, and my kitchen is nice and warm now, that only took 20 minutes to rise maybe. So what I'm gonna do is preheat my oven to 500 degrees. I'm gonna cook 2 of these at one time. I think I can at least. On my carbon steel, oh, does this even fit in here? That's the question. It does, okay. So this is my carbon steel griddle. It's like a cast iron, but the ratio of carbon and the other element that's in there, I can't remember what it is at this point, is a little different. So it's a little bit lighter, and I really like it. Oh yeah, this dough is beautiful. But it can actually cook 2 naans, I think, at one time instead of 1. My cast iron that I did this last time I made naans, I did it in my really large cast iron skillet, which worked really well, but it was round, so I could only do 1 at a time, versus this one, I think I can do 2. And because I doubled this batch, we're gonna have quite a bit of naan here, and it's kind of sticky still. Hopefully it's not too sticky. I do have some flour here. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is make this into a log. They're not gonna be perfect. I could grab the scale out if I wanted to and make them weigh the same, but I don't think I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna try to get 16 pitas. Normally I do this with my pastry knife, but that's in the dishwasher. Hopefully that math was correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is roll these into balls, and we're gonna let them do a second rise for probably 15, 20 minutes. Once I shape them, all right, I'm gonna cover these and let these rest for about 15 minutes. Now, I was calling these pita breads naans there. You might have picked that up. These are not naans. These are pita bread. I don't know if you could tell, but at this point in the day, I was getting a little bit tired and my words were not working properly. But it didn't matter what I was calling them. They turned out perfect. The one downside, though, is like I said, was kind of making this recipe up. And you know, I did not keep track of what I did. So I can't write this exact recipe up for you. That just means that I will link a different pita recipe that I've made before in the past that was absolutely delicious. And I will have to make pita bread again because we've already gone through all these pita breads, and I will actually write down the recipe because this was a fantastic recipe. It tasted delicious. We are starting to just fall in love with the fresh milled flour. The nuttiness and the flavor that it brings is just incredible. Now these pita breads again were half wheat, or I should say half fresh wheat, whole grain, and half all-purpose flour that I had purchased. I would like to try to do a whole grain pita, but I didn't do that on this day. I'm trying to just kind of ease myself into the whole grain baking because it's a whole different ball game than using store-bought all-purpose flour. So here, what you do after you roll them thin, then you cook them on each side. The first side, I cook them for about 1.5 minutes until the pita puffs up. While those are cooking, I just keep rolling out other balls of dough, and then I flip them over, cook them for about 1 minute to 1.5 minutes on the other side. I'm just looking for them to be fully puffed up and nice and brown on each side. And using this griddle pan in the oven worked perfect because I was able to cook 2 at a time as opposed to 1 at a time. So it went twice as fast. And then I think the key though to pita to make sure they stay nice and soft is to put them in a towel and let them kind of finish steaming together.
And we've eaten all these pitas. None of them made it into the freezer. We use them as peanut butter and jelly. They work perfect for just like a turkey sandwich, and they work fantastic with tonight's dinner with the chicken, the carrots, and the yogurt sauce that we end up pulling together in just a minute.
Did I say that was gonna take me 2 hours? That took me 4 hours. But I guess I picked a little bit more labor-intensive recipes, and it's totally fine because it was a great way to spend a rainy afternoon. I turned the grill on about 15-20 minutes ago because it needed a good deep clean. I wanted to show you the state of the kitchen as we stand right now. I've got these dishes that will go in the dishwasher when this is done, and I wanted to recap all of what we got done and kind of just, it was worth the effort for me to do this, because not only did I get meal prep for the next week, plus lunches, I am kind of off any sort of serious kitchen duty I'm gonna take these out of the oven for the next week. When it comes to food, I think we're gonna be making candy apples this week though, but that's just gonna be a fun project. And caramel apples, all from scratch. So I'm gonna take these breadcrumbs out of the oven because, trust me, I have left them in the oven and then turned the oven on and burned them. So that is always disappointing when that happens. This is tonight's dinner. So I'm gonna get these on the grill in just a little bit. I'll dress the salad. We have our sauce. I'll slice up this tomato. I was gonna slice up red onion, but I don't think I'm gonna do that anymore because the kitchen's kind of clean. And then here are our beautiful, oh my gosh, they're so pretty. Pita breads. I almost said non-breads, but they're pita breads that are half fresh milled wheat. And a couple of these have already been eaten, and we will probably have 4 or 5 of them fresh. And then I think I might throw the rest in the freezer and pull them out and make, I'm not gonna pronounce it correctly, but it's a rise, I think. It's where you make like a ground beef filling, and you stuff it in that, and then you cook it on the griddle, and it's so good. So I might do that with that. So we've got tonight's dinner, and then we have our corn chowder with our cheese, and then we are gonna add some other creamy elements to this, but this is literally plug it in and let it go. We have our pizza, so pizza dough, pizza sauce, our veggies, peppers and onions, and our sausage. I did go ahead and put the sauce in here because the sauce had cooled, and I will cook this, and I might cook rice, but I'm not sure. This might be more than we need. So with the leftovers, I don't ever really worry about lunch at our house. Most of the time we eat leftovers for lunch, and things like this type of salad, I will eat this for breakfast. If I have leftover chicken and sauce and pita, I might eat this for breakfast because I like lunch and dinner things for breakfast, especially when I have crunchy vegetables. I probably wouldn't eat soup for breakfast, but I would certainly eat this meal for breakfast, and I would definitely eat pizza for breakfast. So I've got the grill going. What I'm gonna do is share with you how these dinners come together throughout the week. I do need to wipe my counter one more time. There is some flour on here. I had a rag out, I started washing it. I need to wash it down. I need to sweep and mop, but I'm not gonna do that right now. I will probably enlist the help of Josh to do that. All the ovens are off. All we have to do is dress the salad and grill the chicken, slice the tomato, and dinner is done. And it is going to be so incredible. Oh, you know what I'll do? I'm gonna say so incredibly delicious. I interrupt myself all the time. I'm gonna put some red onions probably in that salad that are pickled so that we can have some pickled red onions on our salad. Okay, I'm gonna put this chicken on the grill. I'm getting a little tired at this point.
This is what the dinner is looking like as it all is done and together. So on this day, it was Monday night. So I'm going to show you what all of these components of tonight's dinner look like. We have our pita, our grilled chicken. I end up dicing the chicken really small. We stuff the chicken into our pitas with our carrot salad, our tomatoes, our yogurt sauce, our hot sauce, and some pickled onions, and it was absolutely incredible. Now what I'm going to do is kind of walk you through the rest of the week and show you how I incorporated all of this meal prep and how I kind of brought them together, and I'll tell you what I did on that day so you can kind of see how this meal prep worked into my life. So first night done, I wanted to get the hardest thing done on the day I was already going to be in the kitchen so that the rest of the days are just basically plug and chug. I don't have to really think about dinner. So on this day, we're making a ton of caramel apples and candied apples, and we go and we drop them off at friends and family. So I didn't want to have to think about dinner because I was going to be thinking about candied apples and carameled apples. So in the morning, I put my corn chowder on low. I let that go for about 6 hours. And when the chicken was fully cooked, I removed the chicken from the slow cooker. I diced it up and I just put that in the fridge so that the chicken didn't get overcooked. And then about a half an hour before we served dinner, I mixed flour and sour cream together. I put that into the slow cooker along with half a block of cream cheese and 2 cups of white cheddar cheese. I put the lid on. I let that all get warm and thick. I let the cream cheese kind of melt. I whisk all of it together. And then once that has sat for half an hour to 45 minutes, then I add the chicken back in. I let the chicken heat back through. And that is our dinner. This was so good, my friend. I told you I probably wouldn't eat this for breakfast because I'm not a huge soup person for breakfast, but this corn chowder was so good that I did eat this for breakfast. I usually only eat 2 meals a day. I usually eat breakfast around like 10:30, 11, and then we eat dinner together just because that's usually when I get hungry, so that's when I eat, and this was so good. So how we served up this creamy corn chowder was with a little dollop of sour cream, some fresh peppers from the garden, and some chips. It was the perfect creamy, cozy dinner after a busy day in the kitchen, working on fun, sweet projects. Now it is Wednesday, and on Wednesday, I worked in the garden. I got a ton of garden projects cleaned up, and I also planted 2025's garlic. So that was a huge thing that needed to have happen. And so I spent most of the day outside. So when I came in, all I had to do is roll out the pizza crust, put on the toppings that were already prepped, and bake them in a really hot oven. The recipe said to use a hard wheat berry. I didn't have that. I used a soft wheat berry. It still turned out really good, but I am going to work on perfecting a whole wheat pizza crust. But for my first attempt, I was really, really happy with the results. So we get that baked in a hot oven. I rotate those halfway through, and this is what the pizza looked like coming out of the oven. Super easy, super satisfying, and a great way to end the night after working in the garden all day. Now on this day, this is a day where we go live and we process tons of peppers that came out of the garden. That was another thing I did the day before, is I harvested all of the peppers out of the garden. And in the morning, I worked on computer stuff all morning. We went live, and then for dinner, all I had to do was heat the oven up, put the meatballs in the oven, turn on the Instant Pot with some rice, season the carrots, and get those cooked. Now, I definitely would recommend cooking this the way the recipe is written and not the way I did it, because you did have to take the grease off the top of the sauce. But overall, I was grateful that I did all of this prep because I did not want to have to think about dinner on this night. So I want to thank you, friend, for being here as we prepped a week's worth of dinners. I hope this gives you inspiration where you can choose your family favorite dinners. Take a Saturday, take a Sunday, take a Monday, whatever, do a little bit of prep, and then hopefully your week can be a little bit easier. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. And I'll put some more videos here you can go enjoy between now and my next upload. I hope you're having a great day, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.